Hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Every Rockie Ever, a Colorado Rockies podcast under the Rocky Mountain Rooftop banner for Fans First Sports Network. I'm your host, Skyler Timmons, joining you here on a very snowy winter day here in early November, and joined here, as always, enjoying his snow day off from school while we record this. It's Dustin Timmons.
Woo woo. We were advised yesterday about a 2-hour delayed start. At 5:30 this morning, the sweet phone call came in. All schools are canceled.
And they didn't make you do remote online learning?
No, thankfully. That was one of the worst times where we thought there was a death of the snow day.
And this is the era where they actually cancel school. I don't remember them doing it very often when I was growing up.
Yeah, we never got snow days because we were just built different.
Many mornings we'd be watching the school bus slowly come to a stop as it gets stuck in the snowdrifts coming out to our house.
Yeah, but I don't know, especially here in Pueblo, they don't plow the streets, and everybody travels pretty good distances throughout the district to get to their schools.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's a main factor. But because is it really that bad? All the roads are pretty cleared off, and it's just wet, so it's not iced over or anything. But I'm not complaining. This actually gives us some time to talk about some Rockies.
Yes, indeed. And we figure we're always trying to figure out who we want to talk about, throwing out ideas, and we throw out names. And one that we kind of settled on is kind of relates to the Rockies' recent hire here in 2024. One of their first moves of the offseason. It was after extending Bud Black. Well, they needed more of the pitching or the staff figured out for the coaching staff. They needed a new bullpen coach. And who do they turn to? They followed the Rockies' fashion of promoting one from within, a guy who has ties to the organization. They turned to former catcher Dustin Garneau to be their bullpen coach. And you'll remember he is a former catcher, so they're going that route, bringing him in to be the bullpen coach for the 2025 season. We figured, hey, perfect opportunity to talk about him just a little bit, and also talk about a couple of other former Rockies in recent memory who joined the Rockies coaching corps in the organization here in these last couple of years. But Dustin Garneau, this will be a quick one, but go ahead and give us a super quick rundown on him.
So Dustin Garneau out of California was drafted by the Rockies in the 2009 draft out of Cal State Fullerton, and made his major league debut for the Rockies August 20th, 2015. And number 50 when he first came up, but then I remember him as number 13. That's our number there with the Rockies, and only played 68 games for the Rockies for those few years from 2015 to 2017. And then he went on and bounced around to different teams. In 2017, picked up off waivers from to the Athletics. Then 2018 over to the White Sox. Then went over to the Angels. Selected again by the Athletics. Went over to the Astros for a little bit. To the Tigers. Back to the Rockies. And was granted his free agency. And was pretty much done at the end of 2022. But then the Rockies picked him back up as a coach. He was a catching coordinator in the minors, and this year bringing him up, which I think is a great move. Getting him, he's a young guy, really close in the game. He's a catcher that they see the game in a whole different perspective than anybody else, and I think he's going to do great things in the bullpen for the Rockies. Heck, he might even be thrown on the gear mid-game when that phone call's ringing. He might just lean over in full catcher's gear.
Yeah. It's one of those interesting ones where it was kind of a low-key move. when they hire him, because it's just sort of that random name like Dustin Garneau. Like he didn't do that much. No, with the team, like you said, very small stint, 68 games. No, came back to Albuquerque for a little brief appearance back in 2021 before the Tigers picked him up, and then finishes his career with the Tigers. But not really a lot to write home about. Didn't hit much. A 205 career hitter. No, not a lot to write home about offensively. 15 home runs in total, most of those in Colorado. He did have 6 in 2021, so with the Tigers. So good for him. But not a lot to write home about offensively. But he fits into that mold of maybe a lot of catchers do where, yeah, they're not doing much at the plate, but his defense, okay, that's a little bit more you can work with.
Yeah, and him being drafted the 2009, right after the World Series and the 2009, that year they get back to the playoffs, and it was really clumped up after that with the pitching depth, and he like I said, he was a glove first kind of catcher, and so there was not that big a need. We always look at Colorado positions, and we need guys that can hit bombs and get on base, but he was more of that defensive specialist,
Mhm.
and that's why it wasn't surprising to me that as soon as he was done playing, that they put him into a coaching role, because they're the team that drafted him. They saw that potential. I
Mhm.
think a lot of times yeah, you want the player performance part of it, but there's a lot of guys that they can see these qualities of, he's going to be an asset, further down the road as well.
Yeah. Yeah, 'cause you can even look at his minor league career. Not a bad offensive career in the minors, but it just didn't translate to the big leagues. But something that always did was his work behind the plate that we were looking at. Uh, had like a sub 5 ERA as a catcher, including a couple of sub 4 ERA seasons in his brief stints in Colorado. But known for good work behind the plate, across that board, at least average. But his relationship with the pitchers is always good. But that's what the Rockies hoped when they hired him, that he could bring that game planning aspect. That's what he focused on when they hired him, because they already had a person over that. I think it was Mark Strittmatter, or whatever, was over all that. But then he took on a different kind of focus, and they're like, turned to Garneau and said, "Hey, you take over catching and game planning specifically to help pitchers and catchers develop game plans, learn how to call a game, work through a roster, and how to adjust, and think on their toes." That's what he focused on. And now that's what he'll get to do with the Rockies, is helping these pitchers develop plans of attack with the catchers, hopefully to improve that young bullpen.
Yeah, and it's exciting. So it's just, this first guy that we're talking about and he's got one of the bigger roles now, um, as a bullpen coach. He go 1 year as a was a 1-2 seasons with as a coordinator, and then boom, now he's with the big leagues, and he's only 37 years old,
Mm-hmm.
which I think is very good, because that Rockies bullpen going into 2025 is pretty young, and I think he'll be able to connect with them really well. And not only that, is that's another tool at the big league level to also work with the catchers,
Mm-hmm.
to work with a Drew Romo, to work with whoever else we get behind the plate. And it's just one more benefit and a good thing to have.
Yeah. And he brings in some outside, experience working with other teams, learning how other teams kind of operate pitching wise. And he has that experience that he can bring back. Uh, he didn't work with the greatest team, but he was with the Astros in 2020. Uh, a good team. And a couple of those teams that had some good arms in their systems. You know, Oakland's always had some good pitching despite everything. I guess they're not Oakland anymore. They're just the Athletics. But They always had some good arms, so he brings in some outside experience that he can then couple with, yeah, I've worked in this Rockies system and I know what works, I know what doesn't work. And hopefully he can bring that and have some good influence there working with Bud Black and Daryl Scott. Bring some young outside perspective of like, fellas, we've been doing the same things here in this Rockies system. This isn't working. We need to do something different. That's the hope. But he's just one of many Rockies that have been with the team, left, or have assumed come back and worked with the team in some capacity. And we'll see what he can do. He's just the latest in many that have happened in the last couple of years as the Rockies go through this weird phase where they're going to bring back familiar faces, but we'll see what happens. But yeah, that's old Dustin Garneau. Good stuff. But moving along here, move on to another catcher who's taken on a more prominent role with the Rockies organization. That's a wild card hero that we'll talk about. But it's one Tony Wolters, who is the bench coach down in the Arizona Complex League. Took that role on last year, or is it this year? I can't remember when he started working that role, but Tony Wolters, he's a fun one. He's a fan favorite, I would say.
Yeah, he was one of those guys that nobody was really expecting to make a big of an impact he did. And I'll just go ahead and go through his rundown real quick. Tony Wolters, actually a second baseman, uh, but was a catcher. Batting lefty, throwing righty, number 14 for your Colorado Rockies. He was drafted by the Cleveland Indians in the third round of the 2010 draft, and right out of high school in California. He made his major league debut with the Rockies um, in 2016. He was one of those. He was one of those selected off of waivers. The Rockies picked him up at the beginning of that 2016 season and played with the Rockies till 2020. And then he moved on and signed with the Pirates. Went over to the Cubs, to the Dodgers. I want to forget about that. I can't believe he would go to the Dodgers and finished his career with the Minnesota Twins back in 2023. Uh, that's his real quick, you know, big league career. 7 years, all of that pretty much coming with the Rockies for those 5 years. And like you said, he lived forever in Rockies history with that one little Tony Wolters base hit.
Yeah, he's another one that fits into that weird era, or he fits into that mold of a catcher who really was doing nothing offensively. Really did not provide much of anything. No power really to speak of. Wasn't striking out a ton when he was playing. It's just a contact bat that just wasn't doing a whole lot. But his defense would more than make up for it. And he was usually backing up platooning with Chris Iannetta or Jonathan Lucroy, any number of these guys that they had at the times. He was just kind of the de facto platoon backup where, hey, we need a defensive guy. We'll give him some starts.
Well, what was wild is in 2016 they brought him up because Nick Hundley was hurt, and then we're like, okay, yeah, this is just a backup guy. Like this is just a band-aid. And then 2017, he was our starting catcher,
Mm-hmm.
opening day starting catcher, and we're like, oh boy, like this is where we're at. But he just could not hit. Defensively, he was quick. He worked hard, but that bat was just not there. And that's one of the biggest reasons why the Rockies picked up Jonathan Lucroy at the
Mm-hmm.
end of that 2017 season. And then in 2018, it was again the same thing. they didn't bring Lucroy back, and Wolters played 74 games in the 2018 season.
Hmm.
But it all worked out because season, the biggest hit of his career,
Hmm.
and nothing else mattered before, nothing else mattered after. It was just that one moment of Tony Wolters.
Yeah, he's one that there'll be the fans. I was have to pick on Evan Lang, my co-host over at Affected by Altitude, where he loves Tony Wolters and everything, and that's great. But I could never really hop onto the Tony Wolters train as a player because for me, like I don't care if you're just defensively. I need offense still too. You need to be able to hit at any position. I can't have any empty outs in the lineup because then it's like we just have two pitchers in the lineup at the time. I could never get on board with Tony Wolters as a catcher or as a hitter overall. So it always I'm like we really can't get anything better than him. Like he's doing nothing for me. But as that aside, that defense is what kept him around so much. Is because he worked well with the pitchers. They liked working with him. That athletic build behind the dish because he had that experience as a middle infielder. And they converted him. That's what sticks out to me mostly is okay, Tony Wolters has got that. He's got the defensive prowess that you'd want if only he could hit.
Yeah, and he had in 2019 he played in 121 games and batted 262. Not bad.
Hmm.
He only had one homer, right? Not bad. Struck out 68, walked 36 times. So that was one thing is he wasn't afraid to walk. He could get the walks. But I think that year is when I remember a lot of the term Tony Two Bags,
Hmm.
because he could slap a double, but he only got 17. So that's one of those things too where I'm like, was he a doubles machine? Like the only hits he'd get would be a double? No, that wasn't it.
Yeah.
But I loved his work ethic. He was a guy that was it him that had the notebook and stuff. He was always like studying the game, preparing, getting ready, and you could see that preparation in the way he played.
Hmm. Yeah. He was always just that good overall. He was like, do you want him playing? No. Do you want him to be your starting catcher? Probably not. He's going to be mixed in with that platoon, which he did a lot with Chris Iannetta, but then he took on more and more of a role, especially in 2019. But work ethic, student of the game, and worked well with his pitchers. See if I can pull these up. What his ERAs were with the Rockies, because that's what you always hear. Is yeah, he didn't really provide much offensively, but man, did he work well with the pitchers and stuff. But ERA wise, not great as far as catchers go, but pretty typical what you'd expect for a catcher in Colorado. 4.72 in 2016, 507 in 2017, 418 in 2018, which, hey, Kyle Freeland's probably helping out with that number quite a bit. 2019 was a 5.30 and then a 5.62 in 2020. So he wasn't working with the best most of the time, but still worked well behind the dish. Throw guys out, got it done where he needed to, and help guide them through. I think that was always the big thing. He could guide a guy through. But he had a 31% caught stealing, 2016, 39%, in 17, 27%, in 18, 34 in 19, and then just 15% in 2020, but it's just in 39 games. Isn't that where the don't dash on the stash came up to?
Yes.
His little mustache.
Yep. I kind of did they make shirts of that?
Yeah, I think so. Over at Breaking Tea or something.
Yeah, that was good stuff. But you know that he's a guy that a hardworking professional, and yeah, it was this year. You know, he officially retired in 2024 in January, and immediately took up that a coaching. So the Rockies snagged him up, brought him back in, and has have him down in the Arizona complex working with the young guys. And I wouldn't doubt if pretty soon he starts making his way up
Mhm.
the ranks of the Colorado Rockies coaching staff. But you know, keep on mentioning it again. Like the thing that everybody's gonna remember in Chicago, and we see little Tony Wolters, his little left-handed stance, and he just goes pink right up the middle to get the go-ahead run.
Yeah, extra innings, and has one of the most iconic little images of him at first base, just looking like he's constipated, just tensed up, just going, yeah. Yeah, it's that one little hit. It's not some dramatic home run. It's not some big double. Like you said, it's a little dink shot back up the middle, gets past the diving second baseman into center field. That's what scores the go ahead run, which is the winning run in that wild card game that nobody could hit in that game. No,
Yeah,
people couldn't buy a hit in that game. What was it 2-1 score in 12 innings or whatever? So you couldn't buy a hit in the most unlikeliest of heroes, a lineup that had Nolan Arenado, Trevor Story, DJ LeMahieu, Charlie Blackmon, no, Mark Reynolds, Carlos Gonzalez, Gerardo Parra. And who's the hero? Oh, it's Tony Wolters. Or people that would throw a expletive in between Tony and Wolters. Oh,
yes, Tony frickin' Walters. Yes, that was perfect for him,
mm,
and it just shows, I think, the importance of put the bat on the ball,
yeah.
make contact, put that ball in play, and good things will happen, and it did. If only that the rest of those playoffs would have.
Yeah. There was a symptom of a larger problem in those playoffs where the biggest hit is a little dink shot. The most memorable one is up the middle off
Yes,
the bat of Tony Wolters.
because that's like the only thing we remember from those playoffs.
That's the only thing we like to remember.
Yeah.
That and somebody else we'll talk about. But yeah, but that was who it was where he would put the bat on the ball, worked hard. Student, it didn't pan out overall offensively, but still he found his place, and now he's getting to share that expertise, that experience of winning Rockies baseball. Gets to share that at the ground level in the Arizona Complex League. That the Complex League didn't if they still had all those rookie teams. Maybe he would have been a coach down with Grand Junction or Boise, where their other rookie ball teams were. But he's down there in the Arizona Complex League, a little bit easier, shorter seasons, and a lot more I think that's the cool thing is he's getting more of an instructional role instead of a coaching, but it's more instructional down there in the Complex League. So he's the perfect guy for it in that kind of role. We'll see. Will he ever get up to the big leagues to manage?
You never know. As long as he
Yeah,
brings that mustache with him.
yeah, because he's not old. He's only 32, so he's got a future ahead of him. Yeah, 7 home runs in his career. Oh yeah, he had no power, nothing. Do you ever wonder of like what would have happened if no, if not catching, if he had stuck with the middle infield type of role. Just been like a utility infielder.
Yeah, I don't even know. Now, are the Rockies the ones that converted him into a catcher, or was he already doing that with Cleveland?
I want to say he was converted by the Rockies. I can look here real quick. Look at his fielding logs. No, he was he was a middle infielder with Cleveland. He did catch a little bit in Cleveland. Yeah, he was catching in 2014 and 2013 through 2015 he was catching, and then the Rockies picked him up.
But I think that's hard too because he was a kid right out of high school, and
Yeah.
so with the size, he's not a Jose Altuve, and so I don't think he ever really would have. And the Rockies are always stacked
Yeah.
infielders,
Yeah,
and so
I would think it was the Rockies who permanently moved him to catcher, like, "No, we're gonna stick you a catcher primarily." He got some appearances at second base and shortstop a little bit, which was always nice because what was because he made some good moves behind the plate that made you reminiscent of, "Oh, yeah, he was a infielder." I think he was in San Francisco, and there's, like, a little like a chopper, a bunt or something at home plate, rolls out a little bit, and he runs up, grabs it, and jumps and, like, makes a diving throw
yeah,
over to first base. It's like instances of that athleticism.
yeah, super quick, and made us forget about those days of Lean Rosario back there and
Yeah.
stuff. Oof.
Or a lot of those other catchers that they had in that era of just slow moving blocks.
Yep.
Like, here's a young, athletic type of catcher that's just becoming more and more prominent where teams are like, "No, we need athletic guys behind the dish. You can't just have some big blocky dude sit there, squat, and get the pitch. Need some athleticism back there." Yeah, and he was that poster child. Good old Tony Wolters. Do not dash on the stash. I don't know why they called him Tony Papers. I never understood that one. There's probably an explanation somewhere, but
I thought that was because of the notebook and the notes that he would have
could be, yeah.
about all the time. I think that sounds like a Drew Goodman kind of thing because he comes up with some funny nicknames. Just the stories that they say.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. The focus on details helped Walters earn his nickname Papers during his 2016 rookie season. So there you go. Okay.
Whatever.
Yeah, but turns out baseball players aren't very good at coming up with nicknames.
Oh, don't get us started. Who's that guy? Oh, Brad Hand. What was his? He had a
It
terrible.
was like Brotato or Brotein or something like that.
Ah, get him out of here. No, let's go to the next guy. We're going down a bad path here.
Yeah, speaking of guys with bad nicknames they would give him, they just add in Y to the end of his name, shorten it and add in Y. But another hero of that 2018 Wilds card, another coach, another fan favorite, and unfortunately a guy that's always going to be stuck with a lot of fans thinking of what if. But he's one of our favorites, favorite of a lot of fans, Scott Oberg, the reliever. Take it away.
Oh, Scott Oberg, good old Obi, right-handed relief pitcher, drafted by the Rockies in the 15th round of the 2012 draft out of the University of Connecticut, and he was our number 45. Made his major league debut in 2015 for the Rockies, and he was our guy for 5 seasons. And after that, like you said, he was the health issues, the blood clots in the arm, some scary stuff. That Aaron Cook went through some stuff like that, and come back, tried to come back, but it kept happening. And Oberg was done uh, officially in 2022 was granted free agency, but his last major league action was there in 2019.
Mhm.
But he was he was blooming into this premier reliever.
Mhm.
He could bring the gas and he punched dudes out. He was solid, just ice in the veins, that kind of guy. And right when we're like, yes, we got a guy, we got one of those guys in the bullpen again. And the health wouldn't let him.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the heartbreaker about with Scott Oberg is he was young, blossoming. He was like, okay, he's going to be our next closer. He's kind of primed to be the closer. He could, or the setup guy, something like that. And his arm or his body just didn't let him pitch anymore. Think we all remember it was in spring training. I think he finally gets on the mound again. We see him like, all right, this is it. He's back, and is either after warming up or that first game in spring training, comes back saying, "Yeah, I feel the tingling and stuff in my arm again." Throwing in no life-threatening type of stuff, and then when it comes out, yeah, it's advised he's probably never gonna pitch again because it's just they just keep coming back, the life-threatening stuff, and it's probably best he doesn't play anymore. And that I think that hit a lot of fans were like, "Dang." Like, that sucks just even for him, just personally for him with his health and everything. It all sucks because he said he was blossoming into that reliever that we had been hoping for in that bullpen, and unfortunately, we just didn't get to see what more he could have done if his body had been able to withstand and be able to do it.
Yeah, and when he started out in 2015 and to 2017, it wasn't anything totally spectacular
Mhm,
because those were a 509 ERA, 519, 494. We were just kind of like, man, this guy's just kind of all over the place, ripped, kind of wild a little bit there, here and there. And finally, in 2018, he just locked in. Had an 8-1 record, a 2.45 ERA, 58 and 2/3 innings. Had you know found his spot. He was a setup guy, and
mhm,
then 2019, 6-1 record, a 2.25 ERA, 56 innings. Both of those seasons, in 2018, he only walked 12 guys,
mhm.
57. And it was here in 5 saves that year. Like this, he's figured it out, ready to go.
Mhm.
But
Yeah,
it,
yeah, he had figured out we're like, okay, he's finally turned the corner. He worked through some things and figured stuff out, mentally, mechanically, and that determination. Like, okay, I can't walk guys anymore. I've got to stop doing that. I'm gonna throw strikes, and it finally just took off there in 2018. Where okay, he's got a pretty nice fastball, upper 90s. He's got some good secondaries. Dude's locked in. He's the type of closer that you'd want, or a guy just pitching late in the game on the line, and then comes out August 2019, gets placed on the 60-day injured because of blood clots, ends the season, began 2020 on the injured list because of blood clots again, so he doesn't get to pitch for the 2020 season, and then it's 2021. He undergoes surgery to treat it. I think that was the third surgery he had in 2021 to treat the blood clots. Like, okay, hopefully this takes, everything's good. And then March 27th, they place him on that injured list, and then we never see him again because it just doesn't work. As he's working back, it starts to pop up again, and they have to shut him down. I think that
Yeah,
was
and that
2022 is when that happened. So he comes back 2022, and then it hits again, or 2021, something like that.
yeah, and that's always sad, but you know, awesome is the last time the Rockies had a playoff victory thrown by Scott Oberg, the final pitch, where he
Mhm,
faced four Chicago Cubs batters at Wrigley Field and struck all four of them out.
mhm,
That's pretty legit. Now, if it was like that was his last career game, that would have been legendary.
mhm.
But he still pitched in that next series. But when I think of Scott Oberg, is that just closing the door on in that Chicago Cubs game? Wolters doing his thing, and then Oberg just slamming the door shut.
Yeah, it's he really did. And I'm trying to look at his game logs from 2018. So this is from 2018. So from May 29th, so May 29th to the end of the season, of the end of the regular season. So he made 46 appearances. First month of April, he pitched quite a bit, still a good month, but did have a couple of had a stinker on April 23rd where he gave up 5 runs. That was the only this that was one of 2 times he gave up more than 3 runs in an appearance during the season. He had one in September of that year. But after that appearance, where he gave up 5 runs on 3 hits, from May 29th to October 1st, he had 46 appearances, 47 and 2/3 innings, 47 strikeouts against 7 walks, a 1.51 ERA after that 5-run appearance in April. Goes on to have this incredible run for the rest of the season, where he only has like 1 or 2 appearances where he gives up more than 2 runs, 2 or more runs. So he was that definition of being locked in, like he said. Like, it was nice to have a reliever come out of the bullpen. You're like, he's going to be all right. Like, we don't have to worry. We've got this locked in.
Yeah, and that's like I said, he was the guy that we started to get excited about. Like, yeah, we got a guy that we can trust. And then he was gone.
Yeah.
Bad luck.
Yeah, and as when he officially retired on January 10th, 2023, and he wrote on Instagram, "I have accepted a part-time position with the Rockies and will no longer be pursuing the game I've loved my whole life as a player. Unfortunately, the numerous blood clots I suffered over the course of my career has made playing untenable." His Yeah, and so then kind of heartbreaking to see it. You're like, man, it sucks. No, he's still he was a young guy, late 20s, early 30s, had plenty of a career ahead of him, but cut short. But on the silver lining of that is him retiring, and he got to stay with the organization. Because I think while he was injured, he started to get into like a little bit more of the helping with scouting. He was doing that a little bit, and so then when he officially retired, no, he's a free agent. Officially can retire. He's not under contract with the team anymore. They just go, well, we'll just start paying you for real to do this job now. So that's what he's been doing these last couple of seasons.
And I think that's where a lot of people, when they released Reed Cornelius as the bullpen coach, a lot of people were thinking, is Oberg gonna go in? But I think too is, these guys that are still young, he's only 34 years old. And so I think, he's probably doing family stuff.
Mhm.
He doesn't really have time to be a full-time coach at the big league level, traveling all over the place. So maybe that's one of those things. But and I'm glad that he's still ties with the Rockies, still involved, and spreading that knowledge.
Mhm. Yeah, and I like that it's one of those instances where we're happy when the Rockies are loyal. They're loyal to a fault with a lot of other things, but this is one of those instances where, like, yeah, they did right by him, where he had signed to a nice little contract after that 2018 season, and then it just didn't pan out. It didn't cost the Rockies much of anything, but the fact then he started to they gave him something to do while he wasn't pitching, while he's under contract. Okay, start traveling, start doing some scouting with us. No, learn the other side of what you can do after you're done playing, and then, oh, okay, I'll just do it as your job for us. And yeah, it's probably a nice little gig. He gets to travel around to the minor league teams and work with the relievers. Just help them out. I remember going down to an Albuquerque game just to watch as a fan, and there's Scott Oberg walking with guys out to the bullpen. It's like, oh, there's Scott Oberg. That's cool. It's nice to see him. Uh, just that cool thing where he gets to stay in the family and keep working on stuff and sharing that knowledge because he's a smart dude. It takes his craft seriously, and so hopefully a lot of these young relievers learn from that, and we'll get to see some of the fruits of that labor.
Yep. But here's a question for you though. Who's one of the former Rockies or maybe current Rockies player that you would like to see in a coaching position uh, sometime?
Mm,
Who's somebody that you think would be just maybe a manager or stepping in as a bench coach, a hitting coach? What do you think? Who's a guy that you would love to see on that other side?
Hmm. No, I'm trying to think. I'm looking at the current Rockies, current Rockies roster. It's not a whole lot that stands out at the moment for at least the current Rockies because everybody's so young, so it's hard to tell. But I think of everybody. I think Daniel Bard was one that people have been hoping like retires, stays with the team in some capacity, mental skills coach or something like that. But I know for me, I would always love to see Matt Holliday come and be a coach for the Rockies. If we
You know,
draft his son, maybe we can entice him a little more to come around, help out.
maybe. I was really excited when Jason Giambi was in the
Yeah,
thoughts of
for the running of
coaching.
manager,
Yes.
and then he went on to play with Cleveland for a couple of years.
Yeah. I still really like that idea. I know Vinny Castilla is a guy behind the scenes, a special advisor. He's one that I'd really like to see get a shot, get a chance to manage if he ever wanted
I,
that.
I wonder if the Rockies will ever look at try to bring Gerardo Parra back because I don't think he's coaching anywhere right now. He was with the. Oh no, I think he is still with the. Can't remember if he's with the Nationals still or not. I think he is in some capacity. Guys
It's
like that.
like that or I always it would be cool to I've thought about like the old time like the Blake Street Bomber guys, but then I don't like that idea because we tried Dante Bichette as hitting coach and it didn't pan out the way that we
Yeah,
wanted it to.
it was okay.
But it's I don't think we need to get guys that are in this somewhat closer to this newer generation.
Yeah.
And so somebody I would like that I think would bring the fun into it, little Tony.
Yeah.
Get Carlos Gonzalez back into it.
Mhm.
That way there'd be some kind of closure.
Yeah.
He's not officially retired, is he?
It is, but it was never
Yeah.
never really made a big deal about.
So
Sign him to a one-day contract so he can retire a Rocky and then hire him.
yeah, something like yeah, how cool would it be to see him at first base?
Mhm.
You get a base hit and there's cargo right there.
Yeah.
Um, just something or Shoot, I guess make him an assistant. I don't know, but I'd like to see him back in the purple pinstripes.
One I was thinking about, and we did this during our former Rockies coaching draft over at Affected by Altitude. Uh, Michael Kadire as a manager or just as a coach. He's currently the Team USA 18 under manager, but there's a guy who is primed to be a big league manager. I think he would fit perfectly with any team, especially that experience of working with those young kids. A dude that's played with some of the best, has had mentors, some of the best in the game. I think Cuddy would be a phenomenal big league coach.
Cuddy is your buddy.
Mm-hmm. Plays the game right, plays it hard. He could do magic tricks.
And the biggest magic trick he could do is to make the Rockies relevant again.
Mm.
Make holy cow. But that's always fun to think since, with this topic today of former players getting in coaching positions. But we'll continue to see, and it'll be interesting to see what guys later on take that coaching path. A
Yeah.
lot of people threw around Charlie Blackman. Personally, I don't see it.
Yeah, he's
Bought
not the
into,
personality.
yeah, that he's going to jump in and be a coach. I've never once saw that. I always saw him as a silent leader by example, but not out there
Same with
in the
like
youth.
he would fit that role of like Todd Helton, who just kind of goes around and has those conversations with guys in a part-time thing, traveling around the farm system. That would be Chuck's role. Not He's not going to be that involved every single day, rigorous grind thing.
But it'd be like somebody like a Jake Cave,
Yeah,
those guys that's, and I think a lot of it's these guys that play the bench, that played multiple positions, been around the game in different spots. Those are guys that I think might fit that. Not that solid. He was in that position all his career. He was with this one team forever and ever. I think
yeah,
it makes him, more likely. It's more probable for that candidate, that's been around. They've seen the game from different areas, different perspectives.
yeah,
But we'll see.
yeah. Because guys that we had, guys that struggled, and had ups and downs, but were studious, dedicated to the game and bring a different perspective instead of the guy that was successful all the time. Guys that know how to deal with failure and help teach some of these young kids who really have never experienced failure in their baseball careers because they were always the best of the best on their little league or high school team or sometimes even their college team, one of the best. And so they humble guys that know, yeah, you're going to take your lumps here as you're learning and developing. And three guys that are Dustin Garneau, Tony Wolters, and Scott Oberg, perfectly young guys that fit that mold. Good additions to the team and the organization to help mold this team, hopefully to back to contention of some sort. But that'll do it here for this edition of Every Rockie Ever. We always appreciate you tuning in when we get these out. They used to be more regular, but life.
Well, now that soccer season's over with, hopefully
Mm-hmm.
we'll get a few more snow days mixed into it.
Yeah,
And we'll get back to the grind.
indeed. But yeah, you can follow us here at Every Rockie Ever over on social medias, over at Twitter for however long that's still around. But also you can follow us Rocky Mountain Rooftop. It's ROCKYMTN Rooftop. Check out new episodes every Monday for Affected by Altitude, our flagship show. And then, yeah, you can go check out the most recent one whenever I put this out. Usually on Mondays. Good stuff. Not trying to break the space time continuum.
Whoa.
Yeah, we always appreciate you tuning in. You can find me over at sideline_crowd, writing Wednesday rock piles for purpleroad.com and writing stuff at fansfirstsports.com. You can follow Dustin on Twitter at Vamos Rockies.
or anything else. And maybe one day I'll start getting really active, but we shall see.
Eh. But until next time, I'm Skyler. That's Dustin. Farewell.